Hey, what's going on, guys? In this week's video, we will be discussing the shoulder as well as the rotator cuff, some of the anatomy and functions that play a part in the shoulder, and some of the common injuries also associated with this area. So this is a ball and socket type of joint, and what it does is it connects the upper arm at the humerus to the body via the scapula and clavicle. So we have the humerus here at the upper arm, the clavicle here, and this is connecting the shoulder joint with the scapula. The primary function is range of motion across several different planes. In the sagittal plane, we have flexion and extension. So for flexion, we can move the elbow up like this, and that's a good example of flexion. Show us again. And then let's get into more of an extension type of movement. Extension is going to be behind the body. And that's a good example of extension. Can you step to the side and now let's keep the hands straight. And let's show flexion in front of you. Higher. And then let's get into an extension movement. So we'll bring them back down and behind. Very good. The next movement that we're going to be showing is abduction and adduction. And this is also going to be at the sagittal plane. So abduction is going to be the act of moving your limbs out to the side. That's a great example of abduction. And now adduction, they'll be returning back medially, back towards the spine. That's great. And then we're going to show external and internal rotation. A good example of internal rotation would be the arm bent at 90 degrees here while the hands rotate inward, more medially towards the spine. And then bring them back neutral and then outward. And then this will be external rotation. And then because we're on a more horizontal plane, this is going to be across the we're coming across the waist. Another good example of external and internal rotation would also be just like this. This would be our internal rotation, and this would be an external rotation, again, in the sagittal plane. Some of the muscles and fascia associated with this area would be the anterior delt, your medial deltoid, as well as the posterior delt. The muscles associated with the rotator cuff consist of the supraspinatus, as well as the infraspinatus, teres minor, and subscapularis. Some of the common injuries are overuse injuries, as well as impingement. Shoulder impingement and overuse injuries quickly contribute to instability in the shoulder. And what this does is it will eventually wear down cartilage in the joint, and it'll create a lot of bone-on-bone contact. Some common movement flaws associated with the shoulder is improper scapular movement, not keeping the scapula stabilized. We oftentimes see this in bench pressing, right? We see a big high arch in the thoracic and cervical spine with somebody really getting up on the top end of their shoulders trying to bench press. However, it may work for some people. It's not a great way to facilitate stability in the scapula. Another thing that we often see is flared elbows, especially on shoulder press with dumbbells, right? Flared elbows, having those elbows excessively out to the side, not keeping them a little more tucked into the frontal plane, and then with excessive loading, it's a good chance that you could create an impingement. In other words, you could have rotator cuff tendons that get pinched against the scapula. One of the best ways that we can kind of improve function across the shoulder are cross-body stretches. This will help facilitate range of motion, and it's a very healthy movement. And we can use this other arm here just to help facilitate the stretch and get a good stretch across the anterior, medial, and posterior delt, and get a good stretch in some of those rear muscles that we mentioned earlier, especially some that play a role in the rotator cuff. In a rehabilitation setting, physical therapy schools often focus on rotator cuff strengthening. And although that is a very important aspect of rehabilitating your rotator cuff, um, these muscles are more stabilizing muscles, right? And they're not essentially prime movers. Some prime movers include the scapular muscles, like the trapezius, rhomboid major and minor, levator scapulae, and these muscles give a strong base for the shoulder girdle. Thank you.